Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume. Hi, this is part 2 of our conversation with Julianne Moore and Bart Freundlich. If you haven't listened to part 1, you might want to go back and give it a listen or not. However you're doing it just right. Enjoy the show.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Question.
Yep.
Question over
Susan?
here. When each of you reflect on your personal life thus far, is there in your personal life, a line of demarcation that when you think about it, you're like, my life before and my life after? Do you have that?
You answer.
I have a couple.
Say.
I have a couple. I think I do. I think when I left home when I was 18,
Yeah.
I feel like I had my whole life before with my immediate family, but they were living in Germany. So then I moved back to the United States, and it really was like a whole other thing. It was really like I had a different life. And then I also feel that way about Bart too. I feel like I had my personal life before I met Bart, and my personal life after was completely different.
That's awesome. What about you, Bartram?
That's really sweet.
Ooh, I gotta top that.
I would say, can you edit this pause out? It's going to be long.
No, it all stays in, buddy.
I mean, the biggest one is before Cal, our son, was born. After, I would say that's probably when I became a father. I think that's one. I think it distanced me from being just a son, and two, I think it, it's obviously. I mean,
How do you feel like that life event impacted you creatively?
I think it encouraged me to be more authentic.
I love it.
I think that it encouraged me because and this was a slow realization, but
You got that slow pace.
yeah, I got that slow pace. I think everyone can tell. This is when they get up to get something to eat during.
They're listening in 2 times speed right now.
Yeah, okay. As long as they're listening, that's a miracle.
Yeah, there
you go.
No, I think it's that I realize that parenting, that you can say as much as you want to your kids, but it really is what you model that they pick up on, and I think that gets in there. So I much to my chagrin, I realized that I was going to have to model being pursuing happiness and pursuing authenticity, so they could see that. Just sometimes you don't get the things you want.
That's awesome. I love that. What about you, Jules? Like any of those big changes?
I think that, particularly after first when I left home, that was sort of my decision to be like, I was going to pursue this thing. And I don't really even have any clarity about what that meant, except that I made a decision that was about a creative choice in my life. And I didn't know if it was going to work out. So there was that. But what I did learn after I made that was that I wasn't entirely happy. So that simply focusing on that wasn't enough for me. So I think there was a point in my life too where I was like, this isn't enough, just this creative life. And so after I met Bart and we had a family, then I was like, well, this is what I wanted. I made a very distinct decision to have a family life and have a creative life. And that was a big turning point for me, because otherwise it simply wasn't enough to just have a creative life.
Word.
One of our favorite things to talk about, because success is all visible to everyone, and you're like, ooh, the accolades and the kudos, but we feel like we don't talk enough about how we process creative failure or perceived failure.
I'll take this one.
You got that. Talk to us. We got time. Let's get comfortable here.
Strap in,
I'm
folks.
kidding. You have anything to say about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Fasty.
everybody does. It's rough.
Can you give us an example of creative failure that you've experienced and how you've processed it?
That you perceive,
Yeah, there's different kinds of creative failure, right? Because we all want people to love our work.
Yeah.
That's right.
Although I love one of my favorite things to repeat to people is that Bill Murray line in Tootsie when he's talking about that he doesn't want someone coming up to him right after the play and saying, hey man, I dug it. I really, it spoke to me. I cried.
Yeah.
He wants someone to run into someone on the street a
Say,
week later and say, hey man, I saw your play. What
happened?
Which is so freaking brilliant, because you realize that it's his way of saying, I mean, it's just mainly hilarious, but two, it's his way of saying, like, as artists, we want to reflect that thing that speaks to us. We want to, and that looking for anyone's approbation gets in the way sometimes of our own, not judgment of our own work, not in a negative way, but
our own experience,
our own experience of our own work, and our own, our own decision making of how satisfying it's been and how close we've come to saying what we want to say. It's impossible to get away from. Like, you can't help but like type in after the wedding and check the grosses. Don't do that, please. But you can't, and you can't help but want reviewers to like your stuff. But so there's that. Obviously, there's that kind of failure. You can always find failure if you look hard enough.
Yes, actually, that's an important point. It's like, if you look really hard, you can find a way to dismantle everything that you felt good about, or that you felt like you've achieved.
Yeah.
And your successes at the end of the day are only going to matter to you. How you felt. I always say to young actors, unless you enjoy actually doing the work, you're never going to feel successful, because the other stuff won't fill that need. The other, all the approbation, the whatever. Yeah, exactly. Having steady employment. Yes, people being whatever. That's all. You have no control over it. It does come and go. Yeah. But if you enjoy the experience of working, of doing the work, you will be happy in a creative life. And I think when I feel that I failed the most is when I'm miserable doing something, and when I don't feel free. I've tried to remind myself of that. When I'm working, I feel like I'm so old now to get to this point where I'm like, oh my God, I keep reminding myself, how do I feel free in my work? Because that's when I'm best.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is the tone that you set, Bart, as a director. When I think of the experience of After the Wedding, or when the words after the wedding flash through my mind, in my body, I have this like visceral response that is so positive and that's all about, the process. I mean, I loved watching the movie, but a lot of that is about the experience of feeling free and feeling safe and that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. I try to remind do you want to say something?
No, I was just thinking about feeling safe. You were talking about different directing styles, and that one of the ones that I think is most abhorrent to me is when somebody tricks an actor. Sets up a situation and so that they feel trapped in order to elicit an emotional response.
Do you mean like Shelley Duvall in The Shining kind of shit?
That kind of stuff, which I think is unbelievably irresponsible and unfair.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And also takes away the actors, the performers autonomy.
That's right.
We have created, it's a creation. And so it's like that's why you open the arena up for everybody to participate, and the work that you're going to get is far more interesting and way deeper than if you kind of try to elicit a response by tricking someone.
Well, also, and you can know that there are techniques where if you pay attention, you know the people you're working with, and you know what environment or what techniques, when they like to do their coverage, where they excel. Michelle Williams was when we shot her big moments at the wedding where she was having this massive realization. We used a 300 millimeter lens, a really long lens from all the way across. Partly just because how we wanted it to look, but she came up, she said, "Were you shooting me then?" That was the most free, best experience I've had as an actor. She didn't know where the camera was.
How smart.
But it was, so there are things that you can do that aren't trickery, but are paying attention, because not everyone is like Julie or is like you. People have different
it's true.
ways of working, and it's good to know that. And then sometimes you run into people that you've hired who can't do it, or they get scared. I've definitely talked about creative failures. I don't know if there's, I was thinking of it when you first said it more on an overall, like this project failed, but I think it's more in those small moments where you're right, where you didn't I didn't feel free, or I didn't come prepared. Sometimes you just can't, but sometimes, or I didn't keep my intention in mind clearly. And if I got too caught up with like what the glossy quality of it was and not really what was going on.
So
those are the things that are
is the
bummers.
processing of that then that you note it and you're sort of like, I'm learning a lesson for next time. I want to be more prepared, or I want to make sure that I'm attending to the root structure instead of the gloss of this.
Yeah, I think that's maturity. I think the definition of being mature is saying what's my opportunity from this experience.
There you go.
But you certainly can feel, it doesn't mean you don't feel disappointment from it, or pissed off, or whatever. But I would think for me, Julie and I were just talking about this morning, this George Saunders thing, famous quote from one of his commencement speeches, that his only real regrets are the failures of kindness.
Oh, fucking yes. A. Yes. That's, I feel like, again, to take it back to the beginning, I feel like that's where both of you actually excel.
Thank you. I mean, I do believe I'm kind of tortured over this idea that artists who create great art also kind of have to be a little bit prickly in order to, or just rash.
I think that's a bag of bullshit.
I think so too.
I don't know. I mean, I don't actually. I mean, I don't. It's not that I don't think you can't do it the other way, but I think that that's protecting something that I would on the movie before this that I made called Wolves, which was much more of a personal story from his original story. I would sit at the monitor with my hands up by my eyes like this, just to not let anyone. And I wanted to just do what you guys do, which is pretend I was in it. I just, because there's so much crap going on.
So much
that
distraction.
And you it's one thing to say like, I got it, like, okay, check that we did shoot that scene with that dialogue, but did it communicate everything that it could?
But you're allowed to protect yourself.
Yeah, so you protect yourself.
That's what's another thing to learn too, is that you learn, you learn that maybe an environment is not, you know what you need to create, and that protecting that creating an environment is okay. And that's saying like, if that you can say like, there are too many people on set, you're making too much noise, please put your phones down, this is what I need to do my work.
Right.
I mean, I need water. I need water. Well, for example, I hate B-roll, and I hate people taking stills when I'm shooting, because the minute there's another lens, your energy is split. So it's different than if you're working with multiple cameras. You understand
but you
that.
also have that technical acumen where I actually like it when there's multiple cameras, because because I don't have your technical acumen. So the minute there's 2 or 3 cameras, I'm like, I can't be responsible for all of this, and I'm just going to do it, and something's going to catch it. But you have such a technical acumen that I think your brain, your computer brain, your fast computer brain can be like, I clock you camera A, I clock you camera B, God forbid camera C, and it's isn't freeing.
But see, I don't know. I don't mind A, B, and C. If A, B, and C, if there are cameras and they're shooting, that's fine.
They're shooting the actual
Shooting
story.
the actual
of the
story,
film.
it's fine. The still photographer,
Yeah.
shooting in the middle of it, I'm like, you got to get
distraction.
out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
can't.
bringing publicity into
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once
So it's a
again, that's an
whole other thing.
audience. That's not part of our thing. You know?
It's not the circle
but yeah,
of trust.
so it is okay to say like that's distracting. No, I don't like that. You know, you don't have to be like you know. You don't have to
I've seen
unkind.
I've seen you be stern, Bart, and set boundaries and things like that. I mean, I do think that's part of it too. You do get to protect yourself, and you're the leader on that in that environment. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting though that you both defined failure as an internal like decision. Like your definition of it is: did I feel free? Did I love the process? Am I proud of what I did?
Correct. Yeah.
And not an external force deciding, you know, and people do define it like, well, how much money did it make?
Right.
How much press did I get? You know, how many more followers do I have now than I had yesterday? Which I think is dangerous. Was there ever a time when you had that? Or like, have you grown into this definition of failure, or
I had
You're
it.
blessed
I
with
guess
it?
I had it. Well, right before I got here today.
So recently.
Yeah, but I'm over it. No, I mean, I think it's absolutely. I know for both of us, and you can speak to it too. But I know it's a big part of it. It's just a more obvious part of it. It's just it's and I guess there may be more techniques for dealing with that. You want to be around people who care about you and love you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Some people I've taken different tacks with like reviews of reading some and then asking myself, do I think there's any truth to any of this? Could I learn anything from it?
But I mean, did you always have that very healthy definition of I decide if it's success or failure? Like, did you gain that over time?
I think I've gained it over. I think I've always had it, but I think it became more my focus over time because I think what would happen is I wouldn't feel the kind of satisfaction I thought I would feel when I had the success, the typical success, if it wasn't something that it just felt a little empty, but I couldn't identify that until I turned 60.
Oh boy. I was having a conversation with you, Julie, and I feel like you're one of the bravest. Like you do super brave things on camera, things that would like keep me up at night, the thought of doing them. And I was like, you're so brave. Do you feel super, or like, are you just so relaxed and free about everything? And you were like, I'm scared all the time.
Yeah.
And it really, it kind of blew my mind. I mean, say something that you've done on camera that you were like, yeah, that was fucking scary.
Well, I think all of it is, but I'll put a finer point on it. Like I'm really scared of diving. Like no joke. Like I'm really scared of diving.
So it's not like doing a monologue pantsless, like naked from the waist down.
No.
You're not scared of that?
Well, of course I am. I mean, it's terrifying. I mean,
But diving is scary.
Well, here's the thing about like, that I always say to people too, if acting is all about feeling and pretending, that's never going to kill you, right? You're not going to die. I'm not going to die pretending.
That, yeah.
I might die diving. It's like hit my head and then I'd be dead. I might die if someone drove a car too fast. Like I'm terrified. I'll sometimes say to Bart, Bart's a great driver, but I'll be like, I get nervous.
Yeah.
Like there are things that actually physically terrify me.
Sure.
It's hard for me to, I might be scared that I can't deliver. I think every actor, every person who's doing something feels
on the
like,
day, will you be able to?
is this going to happen? Can I get there? So you just are like this kind of nerves, but I'm not frightened to do it. Whereas I am frightened to dive. I mean, I really am. But because feelings don't.
Are you drawn to material that gives you a little tiny bit of like, that scares me and I like it? Or it scares me and I'll do it anyway?
I think I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I think I like sensation. I think if you like stories and feelings and stuff, I think we all like sensation. If you don't, I'm always curious when people are trying to keep feeling at bay, because I realize we've set our whole culture up, our whole society with ups and downs and stuff. Because if life can be pretty boring if you want it to be, but we have competitions all the time. We have sports, we have the lottery, we have the unexpected, we have roller coasters, we have race cars, we have all these things to bring sensation into our lives. Romance, and people complain, I'm bored, nothing, I'm not feeling anything. Entertainment is a way to engage ourselves in emotion. So I think that people really do want that. And I think I seek a lot of sensation in that.
Yes.
And it's also something about, there's a feeling that you want to explore, but you're not sure where it's going to take you. I think that's as a writer, I feel that way. And I know you do as an actor. So it's like making the unknown known in some way, but not predetermining it, which is what's so hard about doing that on a film set or in a, where there's a limited amount of time and you're dependent on a lot of other people. Yeah. But there is something, and I'll watch you with, be attracted to a role, you'll just know right away. Like there's something in that she's, and you, a lot of the times you can articulate it, but there's usually something that you don't know yet that you want to explore, that you discover. At least that's what my experience is of you.
We talk a lot about how it seems like we're culturally moving towards this, like, we want warnings if we might feel something.
Oh God. We have this content warning and trigger warning conversation is a hot discussion for us.
It's a hot topic, especially in the arts, because we went to the Performing Arts Project this summer and we did some teaching, and there were some conversations there about like, oh, someone's monologue made people feel things, and they felt they should have gotten a trigger warning that they were going to feel something. And we were like, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to feel things. Where are the arts headed in particular? If we have to say you might feel something,
we should talk to an expert about this. But I think the distinction there is we don't want to throw people into their PTSD.
Right, correct.
But I'm with you all, and I know I will speak for Cams because you are the feelingest feeler.
I feel my feelings.
I love it. I love it about you.
But I also like it. Like I
like it too.
I don't resent anyone for making me feel something. I'm like, I felt it.
Yeah, you're like,
I'm not like, oh, someone should have told me I was going to feel something.
And well, then because I wonder about that culturally. Somebody should have told me so that I wouldn't express it.
So I wouldn't. Yes.
So it's like that's what people are. I wonder sometimes if people aren't more afraid of expressing something vulnerable in a public place. So it's like, so I wonder about that too, why is that not acceptable? But I think that's why, that's what the theater and movies and music are all about, that you go, that's why we would go in these groups to watch these things, to have these feelings public. It's safe. You can, I cried at the play. It's okay. Everybody was crying.
That's right.
So I think we need it,
too.
Bart, you're just drenched right now in estrogen. But when you're sitting and like, do you ever? I have a thing I do as a writer that I call typing and crying, and where I'm just like, oh, this is going to be good, and I know it because I'm having a visceral response that's rolling out of my face. But do you have that?
Are you showing off right now?
No,
I'm
just asking.
God damn it, do people do that? No, I'm typing and crying. I'm sitting in front of my computer crying because I can't type.
Crying.
You must though. I mean, you're sort of set as the writer director. I feel like you're setting up this beautiful obstacle course where actors like your wife can go in and do something that we know the framework of this, and then something surprising might burst out of your face. But I wonder as a writer if that visceral plays a part in your creative process.
Yeah, I think it does. When you hook on to something, and it just seemed to me, it always feels like a door opens up and I can see a whole world, and it just seems real. Yeah. And so you just have to notice it and write it down. Usually that's when I say, I'm just going to watch a quick episode of something else and then I'll get to writing this down.
Real close to feeling that.
And then after that I go, what was that thing again that seems so three-dimensional? But I do, there's a real difference between being shut out and in. or having an idea about something and then having an experience, being able to anticipate that experience and understand, there's going to be a way to communicate and to diagram this and to give a roadmap for what I'm seeing here. But I don't know. Sometimes I think that acting, being a musician or being an actor is really the highest form of all. Only because I think what we're all looking for on some level is this feeling, is to experience this. Like I've yet to be able to do. I can't act. I don't really.
I think you can.
No.
I think you can.
Yeah, but I think the most true thing, like I'll sit there like you do in front of your computer and I'll feel that, I'll imagine that character thing.
Yeah.
The older I get and the crazier I get, the more I'll like mumble the stuff to myself.
Now that you're in your 60s.
Yeah, now that I'm in my 60s, late 60s. But I can only imagine how freeing that must be to just say, I am this character. I am this person. I'm going to experience this to the fullest in the moment. I mean, it would be terrifying, but the kind of visceral rush. I mean, I feel like what I'm looking for in part as a writer is saying, I want to express myself. And when you're literally using yourself as the instrument to express yourself, that's kind of one of the highest, most pure forms of it in a way. I guess the difference is because you're usually not saying your own words, you're confined by that. There's a different purity to the writing aspect of it, whereas directing is just for hacks.
I always think singer-songwriter is the closest to that pure expression because there's something about the human singing voice.
Absolutely.
And combined, we were just talking with Sarah Bareilles, and I was like, I think that is that and smell, like fragrance and the whole time machine of that, the whole how transporting that can be. I was like, I think that might be the closest thing to like pure expression that travels up and out of somebody like Sarah and into the hearts of other people.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever been like a fragrance artist? Is that a thing?
That's my burgeoning career as a fragrance artist. Think about it.
Oh my God.
There you go. There's your next script. There you go.
Speaking of that, is there a creative thing that you need to do before you're done? Before you're like, I think I'm good. I did it all.
That's a great question.
I want to build a house.
Yes.
And design every room.
Your taste is exquisite. It's going to be an exquisite house.
Thank you. I don't know, but I think I want to have the experience of building something from the ground up.
Fantastic.
I think that would be fun. I think that would be really fun.
That's a goodie. What you got, Bart?
I want to build a house.
No copying off Julie's paper.
I want to build a tiny house behind her house.
Is there anything you want to make before you're done? Got anything rattling around?
I have, yeah. I mean, I definitely have a couple. The movie before this, Wolves, was like 30 years in the making for me. I wrote it a short story for it when I was in 10th grade. And then it percolated, developed over the years. She's right, I'm slow.
No kidding.
But there's another story that I would like to that I've written a lot. I've written many incarnations of it. I just don't know what it is quite. It's like I haven't figured it out quite yet. So I guess, to be honest, I would like to make that before it's all over.
Yeah.
But if I don't.
Whatever.
I'll have a house.
You'll have a nice house.
And you'll have a tiny house behind the house.
I also want to underscore that for 1 second because I once had a play that I worked on. We put it up a couple of times. And the second time we put it up, a friend of mine was like, oh, you're doing that again. Still. And I was like,
You got to go
so
fuck
crushed.
yourself.
Well,
And I put it in a drawer where it sat for years. And then I hear stories like this, or Hadestown that was 12 years in the making. You're like,
I
people,
think things
it
of
takes
quality
time.
take time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in how time works on something, because that is like, that's why Boyhood was so genius.
Yes, exactly.
To watch people genuinely grow up
Yeah.
over time and technology change and the places change and the landscapes change.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that. And it's a tough one because, I think it was Louise Bourgeois was talking about how she realized at a certain point, oh, everything I do is going to be about the fact that my father had an affair with so-and-so. You know, it's like,
Yes.
I'm never, and that's a really freeing thing. And in some ways, if you really look at people's work, I mean, it was
I'm making the same thing over and over. I am. I just
working
am.
on it.
well,
I'm
I think it was just
working out.
Brad Pitt who was just talking about this in some article about the Tarantino film, that he's just playing his father, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, in the Once Upon a Time.
Yeah,
in
but then he's
Hollywood?
playing them over and over again in different aspects.
Interesting.
And so it's I don't know. It's like I'm that's the pain for me of writing and being an artist is the uncertainty of how much of it needs more pressure, you know, more pushing,
Yes.
and how much of it needs more space.
Yes.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We try to give permission whenever we're teaching or on the podcast. And like, I feel like saying, if we can all agree that we're not going to let time or the amount of time it's taken us to do something be the reason why we don't finish it or do it. Because too many people are like, well, I already have a judgment about how long this maybe wasn't meant to be if it's taking this long.
Right.
And that's
That's not
bullshit.
true.
That's just a story.
Yeah, can we all agree that we'll get it all out of the drawer and dust it off and get it done?
Yeah,
Right. And
absolutely.
do it. And a little bit at a time. I always say, you know, I have this metaphor about just my career, like, how do you do it? You know, and you do it, it's like a mouse chewing through a wall. Just like little bites. Little bites, and it seems so tedious, but that's eventually you have eaten through the wall.
That's
Yeah,
right.
And what do you really want? Because when we were making After the Wedding, I would be on set. I'd walk away from the immediate area and go, remind yourself, you don't ever want to direct again. This is terrible. Like, this is horrible. You don't want to be there. Like, but yet we're all rushing to the end. Like,
Right.
not just of the set, but like, when's the movie going to be done? When's it going to come out? When's it going to do that? When's it? And it's like really the part that was honestly, I loved being with all the people, and I loved the relationships, and it was really, that was amazing. But one of the most fun parts was being able to reinvent certain scenes in the screenplay, and to your point, to imagine. In fact, I would cry when I was writing the end of After the Wedding.
There you go.
But it was someone else's story, so I didn't feel like that was totally legit, because it was like
No, it is legit.
It's legit.
Bartram.
But when I would write her big scene, or especially the scene in the restaurant where she's toasting and we all know what's going to happen. I was writing the romantic part between Billy Crudup's character and Julie. I would have goosebumps, and that's the part that felt so good. And I kept thinking, well, this is a thing. It's already a thing, even if it doesn't become another thing.
That's right.
You know?
It's already a visceral experience, a positive experience, a chance to collaborate with this person that you love and respect.
Absolutely.
A creative experience.
A creative experience.
That's a creative experience.
We've got some sparks for you. Actually, we think that you should do 2 movies. Mary Oliver. We think you should do a Mary Oliver picture. We think Bart should star, and you should write and direct Julie.
You play Mary. I'll play.
And then also, I Marco Polo Julie, because I was like, I think you should. There's a movie I think you should do where you should play John Kenley. But
I think we should elaborate about the John Kenley.
There's some complexities that would have to be worked out because I can't. I don't know when our John Kenley episode is coming out, so I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
But once again, you should star Bart, Julie. You should write and direct.
Done. Before we finish, I have a question.
Oh
no.
No, it's not a personal question. It's actually, it's not turning. That's
Come on.
But I was thinking about this with that amazing opening. What is it again? What's it called?
The Spark Files.
Spark Files.
The Spark Files.
Because I have.
For the record, Bart forgot we had this appointment today. No hardship.
I remember. I was crying in my office. I remember. I think it was Joan Didion was talking about how she would write an idea if she'd have an index card with her, or maybe it was her husband. Who would carry just an index card or 2 in his pocket,
Yes.
and then have a pen,
little golf pencil or something.
Write it down, and so I'm just thinking about the Spark Files, and I'm thinking about how many, because that's when those moments open up for me where I go, oh, I see that world, or oh, that thing needs to be done, or oh my God, we need to put in a movie a daughter coming home and finding her parents doing a podcast in her living room while her parents are, like, it's so like specific. And it's so, and I sort of write them down in like the most random.
Bart, we need to get you a Spark File.
You need a Spark
So
File.
you need to have a file, because then I've heard writers say that when they're looking for a characteristic or a scene or a setting,
you just
that they'll
get
look
into your
back
Spark File
through the Spark File.
That's right.
But I'm looking in
so
old suitcases for the back of a fortune cookie where I've
Where the hell
scrawled
did I
a
put
word that
that
I'm
napkin?
positive is going to spur on the entire
Pants
thing. For
pocket.
me.
Change everything.
I keep mine in my phone.
Yep.
Camian keeps
I have
hers
both. I have an old
digitally.
school. I
and
like to
she has a book.
handwrite and morning pages and all that stuff. And I use Evernote digitally.
Yeah.
So I can just
Not a sponsor.
not yet.
I wish they would be.
Not yet.
But it's super helpful, especially as my brain ages. For me, those things that seem so indelible in the moment are so fleeting.
Please,
So
I can't remember anything.
I can't remember shit.
Who are
So
you?
it's helpful.
But our other episodes, so we do 2 episodes a week. One is with makers. Our other episode is the two of us reaching into our Spark File and surprising each other with an idea that can be used for anything.
Because we're never going to
like-
make this shit.
It's like, go write it, or maybe we
So
will.
somebody
but
that's
if I
listening,
write
maybe.
it and you write it, we're going to write 2 different
Wow.
things. So we try to be like, listen, ideas are free. They're fruitful. They're everywhere. We don't have to be so like, oh, this is my one precious
Right.
idea.
It's amazing.
cool.
So how
we're
much?
just out.
Aren't you psyched you're on this
I am.
podcast now?
This is amazing.
Yeah.
And how much of it also is helpful to have a partner?
Oh,
Okay. Let me tell you something. You were talking
Everything.
earlier about like you open that door and all of a sudden you see a world and then you can bring the world to life. I was saying to Camian last night as we were falling asleep and we were tucked
that's
into
right.
bed next to each other.
Yes.
Do you wear the headphones?
Yeah.
We record.
We
everything.
live stream all of it. And I was like, for my best work has been, and maybe you two feel this way as well, my best work in this life and my happiest times have been when there is somebody to collaborate with and somebody to share it with.
Oh God,
They're
yeah,
certainly my
right?
most fruitful times. And when left to my own devices and I just try to like fan the flames myself, I just can't get so much done. But when there's our friend Gavin Creel, we interviewed him recently and he talked about how he looks like, metaphorically, he looks like just like a dry sponge. But if somebody comes up and presses the sponge, like all this liquid, all this creative juice comes out.
Do you smell like a hot dog?
Penny, he smells like a dirty kitchen sponge. But I was like, yes, I really related to that. I was like, I need my sponge pressed.
That's an awesome. I'm going to remember that.
That's a good.
Put it in your
visual,
Spark
isn't
File,
it?
Dinkus.
I'm going to. Yes, hold on.
File. And I think as we've gotten older, we've gotten more specific about the characteristics we need in
that
partners,
person.
In
different-
others,
yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Have you had failed partnerships? Creative
Yes.
failed partnerships.
I will speak for myself. I
Yeah.
have.
And yes, I
You
have.
know,
Or just
but
like,
I think
this
it's
isn't
like
going to work.
I think it's like finding a significant other. I think it's like picking out a rescue dog.
Yeah.
As you age, you learn these distinctions that you're
Yes.
like, you know what I require? I
Yes.
require somebody who's kind.
Yeah.
I require somebody who is productive, organized, inspired. Cams will say stuff, and I'm just like, even in this conversation, there are times when I'm like, you're so smart. Look how insightful you are. Like this is who, and you know,
And trust.
And
obviously,
trust,
and
yeah.
trust, and can we process things together?
Yeah.
Can we process
Can-
the highs and the lows together?
Can we process conflict together?
Right.
Super. And do we make each other laugh? Like all of that stuff. Yeah. I think it gets more refined as I
What other
age.
questions do you have for us?
Yeah.
I think that was it. I just wanted to get the spark from the beginning. I've wanted to know about the file.
So you're like, we're painting you into the roles of our good, functional, creative parents. Just what good advice do you have for us and our listeners? Just anything. Just give us some good advice. Yeah.
We were talking about it actually before Bart arrived. I said that the most important thing in your life is to pursue something that gives you pleasure and joy, some kind of interest, hopefully that will lead to some kind of work. But because if you don't, you can do everything right in your life. You can get good grades and get into a good school and take the hardest classes and do. But if you don't enjoy any of it, if you don't want to engage and pursue any of it, it's going to leave to that kind of dry sponge feeling where you're not engaged. So I think to really think about what gives you pleasure, it doesn't matter what it is, but to have that degree of engagement in something makes your life worthwhile. And to know, I think also to know, like for me, to know that I needed not just, I didn't want to be just a creative nun. I wanted to have a family. I really wanted to have a family, and I prioritized having that as well. So to know all the things that you really want, and it's okay to want all of it. And you can find a way to bring all those things together.
Yeah.
I guess maybe something I want to do too now in my life, just being willing to listen to all of those really, really low voices that talk to you, that seem like they might not make sense, or no, I can't do that. But to actually understand that following those is where a lot of new stuff and stuff that's very personal to you lies. And just to be willing to say, oh, I had the craziest thought, or this thing's been on my mind, or this, oh, wow, that interests me. And just to take that as the kind of the higher power voice that you can follow.
And when you say low voices, you mean those internal, sort of, that you have to get really quiet to hear.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like being a meditator, it serves you well.
I guess it does.
Yeah.
It also kills like 40 minutes during the day, which is great.
But also, here's the other thing too, though. It's okay to go towards something. I think that there's a mythology with creative stuff that somehow you're going to be struck by lightning. That here you go, I just got this great idea.
Genius.
It isn't all that. Sometimes you just
Low
have
voices.
to show up.
Yeah.
You show up.
Yeah.
Do the work. Do your morning pages. Meditate. Go for a walk. Read some stuff. Go to a museum. Watch some movies.
Pay attention.
Go toward. Do the work. Take the job. I always tell young actors, take the job. When they say, should I do it? I'm like, what else are you going to do? Take
Wait
the job.
for the next one?
Yeah. Take it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the perfect job right now, but there's going to be something in it, or there won't. And you'll find out that you don't like it, but be active in your pursuit of it.
Yeah. I like it. What you got, Cams?
What's it all for?
What's it all for?
You have to fill time till you die, right?
Activities.
There
It's
it
for
is.
activities.
There it is. Just filling time. That's why we meditate. That'll be 40 minutes right there. Check. Bart, what's it all for? We're leaving this pause
I was going to
in.
say 1,000.
Well, I mean, come on. This seems like a pretty earned pause for this question.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I think it's whatever we say it is,
Yes.
Very true.
I don't know why this quote, all my favorite quotes from my 80s movies are coming up, but I was just saying this to a writer friend of mine who I had lunch with today. He was saying I was remembering Hannah and her sisters and Max von Sydow's character saying, like, if Jesus came back today and saw what was going on in his name, he would never stop throwing up.
So what's it all for?
And wait, I think that's what it's all for.
There it is.
It's for lines
There it
like
is.
that.
And scene.
Finally, what is sparking you these days? What's sparking you?
Yeah, I mean, we are going to. Julie's going to watch this with me, but I watched this documentary called Momentum Generation that was about. It's about Kelly Slater and all the surfers of that generation when they first were getting together in Hawaii.
Big wave riders?
They weren't necessarily even big wave riders. They weren't like Laird Hamilton, but it's really what I think what drew me to it was all really about this created family. And it's before you could become really famous, becoming a surfer. And it's just, you just watch these guys doing these amazing things, but also the way in which just on a human level, they were drawn to one another and they became this makeshift family. And 30 of them lived in one of the mom's houses on Pipeline on the North Shore. It's on HBO. And it's really, so that,
say the name of it again.
It's called Momentum Generation.
That sounds great.
And it's. I mean, we've been doing what people of our age do: watch documentaries and listen to.
This is what it's come to.
Yeah. Jules, you got anything?
I read, Sally Rooney's book, Normal People, this summer, and it's beautiful. I mean, it just, her language is beautiful, and the story is beautiful, and the way these kids go from teenagers to young adults, and the evolution of relationships, and just the ease, the ease of it. It's really, really lovely. So I'd say that's the last thing that I read that I think that sparked.
Yeah. I love it. We'll take it.
You could say a book.
Yeah, you can say a book.
You can say a book.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would have said a book because
if only I'd read one. Thank you so much to our guests, Julianne Moore and Bart Freundlich.
Oh, you guys, that's it. We hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen to me when I say if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and you fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website. That's right. We've got a website, thesparkfile.com.
We'll even take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
And be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, share it with people you love. If you didn't like it, we don't care. We love it. We're going to keep on making it, and you can't stop us, motherfuckers.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to freehand it. You got to music stand it. You got to garage band it. You got to yes and it.
You got to take it
and make it. Bye. We love you. Thank you, guys.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk, go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.